All right, YouTube, so we are moving states in like 3 weeks. I'm 32 weeks pregnant. I'll be 36 weeks pregnant when we move. And we have a lot of stuff to pack. So I am going to start to clean out our pantry, figure out what we want to bring with us, what's worth it, what we need to eat up before we go, like what might not travel well, and maybe the things that we just like don't eat and might be able to donate or repurpose in another way. So I am going to start cleaning out my pantry, and then I'm going to also bring you along with me and showing you how I am using these pantry items and make them into meals into a no-spend food week. We have a lot to cover. Let's get started and let me take you into my pantry. Now don't judge too much because she's messy. All right, so here she is in all her glory. So you can see I have some canned stuff that we've done this canning season yet. I am still kind of within my canning time. I still have a lot of stuff to process before we go, and I'm hoping I can get to it all, but I am slowing down a lot. Being 32 weeks along, I am just like standing in the kitchen is a lot for me right now. So I'm just really hoping I can at least get the rest of my tomatoes processed before we go. And then you have like a lot of just like our staple items and really just odds and ends. And so I'm going to start with just taking everything off of the shelves, assessing what we have, and figuring out kind of like what I want to put back on the shelf and what we can use before we go. You guys, who in my household put this back with like 5 pieces of cereal left? Ay, ay, ay. Magic Spoon is not a sponsor, but you know, holla. We really like Magic Spoon actually because it's a really nice high protein cereal and they don't have like a ton of added sugar in there, especially for like kid snacks. We really like it as like a little snack for our son, so shout out. I can shake it, I can break it, I can get away from you, you pull me in. All right, so I have all of the first like shelf and a half on the floor here. I am going to sort through this now. I'm very afraid that I'm going to unload all of the shelves and get very overwhelmed and then just be stuck. So I'm gonna try and make this piecemeal, and just in case I don't get back to it, that way we're at least starting to go through our shelves and it's not so overwhelming. Wish me luck. But your hold on me won't get away. I can shake it, I can break. Okay, so this is something that is still good, but was given to us and we don't eat. So I'm actually going to put it in the donation pile. We have a local Facebook group that you can post like any of your foods that you aren't going to eat, maybe you overbought, etc. And people who are in need in the community can stop by and grab them. So I'm going to make a little pile for that, and hopefully we can have a really good donation for that. I can shake it, I can break it, I can get away from you. First up on the list is homemade ramen. Now, I am a big fan of ramen, and I grew up on I don't even know how you say it, Moroccan? Someone tell me in the comments. But you know what I'm talking about, the packaged ramen. I grew up on that. I knew how to make that by like probably 6 years old. I could make that in the microwave myself. This is a little bit of a healthier version, and just a little bit more filling too. So I took this, this was an arm roast. I took it out of the freezer. We bought out a year and a half ago, and we're still making our way through it. And I just put it in the Instapot on the saute function, put some salt and pepper on it, and I just got some color on it so that, you know, it would get a nice flavor as it is in the pressure cooker. And so then I put some garlic and some onion in there, probably like a couple tablespoons of each. And then I put a little bit of ginger in there as well, a little bit of soy sauce, and then about 2 cups of water. And then I put the lid on, and I put it on pressure cook for about 2 hours. And I let that cook, and then I went to work. My husband works from home, so he took it out of the pressure cooker when it was done, and so it was ready for when I came home. So now it's the evening, and I am just shredding up 1 carrot, and then I am chopping up a few cloves of garlic. I always think more is more with garlic, and you can never go wrong with too much, in my opinion. So a little bit of oil in the pot, and then I'm going to put the garlic and the carrots into the pot, and I'm going to let it saute for just a couple of minutes. Then I took the ginger packet again, and I put about a tablespoon or so into the pan, and then I mixed it around and let everything saute together for another minute or so. And then I moved on to picking the beef, and so I took this out of the pot and I started just to shred it, and it melted like butter. I love the Instapot, especially like I threw a frozen piece of beef in here and it is amazingly tender. So shout out to Instapot for that. Then I took a quart of bone broth that I made earlier in the week. I put it through a strainer just because I didn't do a great job at straining it initially. So not necessary, but helps if you haven't strained it well. And then I put 4 tablespoons of soy sauce in the pan. And this really helps give it a little bit more of the Asian type of flavor, and also a little bit darker in color as well. Lastly, I put about a half a tablespoon of fish sauce, and I wish they made these in smaller jars. Lastly, in goes the beef, and we let everything just kind of chill together for a couple of minutes. And I put a little bit of salt in there too. I don't put salt in my bone broth, so if you use like a store-bought broth, you might have to skip that step if you don't want it too salty. And then I just mixed everything around again, as I mentioned. And then I started to make the noodles. So these cook really quickly. They only need about a few minutes. Now, I definitely recommend cooking these separately from the broth. I have done it combined before, but I find that it soaks up too much of the broth. And if you leave it together, if you have leftovers, then you pretty much just have like ramen flavored noodles and you don't really have the broth anymore. So definitely cook it separately. So now I am just soft boiling a couple of eggs, and I had to do this because when I studied abroad, my homestay mom was actually Filipina, and she used to make me the best little stews, and they all had like soft boiled eggs in it, and it just makes me miss her. And it feels good to eat some soup like that. So I just soft boiled them for about 6 minutes, and then I put them in an ice bath and peeled them, and then I put them right in the ramen. And this is the final result. It was so good, and my son loved it. Okay, so next up this week is shepherd's pie. Now, this isn't your traditional shepherd's pie, at least with the vegetables that I'm putting in it. Like we said in the beginning, we are really trying to just clean out our pantry and use up what we have. So I think this is a great way to just use up the vegetables that you have and make do. So we are using green beans. I have a plethora of green beans from a local farmer that was just getting rid of a lot of end of the season produce. So we had bags of green beans. So I am just trying to find ways to use it up. And so it actually worked out really well in this. And then I am just shredding up a carrot. Now, carrots are pretty traditional, so I think that's pretty good. And I am just chopping that up into small pieces. You want to be able to have them be small enough so that they cook in a quick amount of time, so you're not cooking over the stove for too long. And then plus it also just makes it into nice bite-sized pieces. So along with a plethora of green beans, I also had a ton of cauliflower to use up, and I chopped this into really fine pieces, kind of similar to the size of the carrots would be, so that the consistency and like kind of texture of it would be similar. And I wasn't sure how this would turn out, but it was actually a really great addition, and I might just add them, like make it a usual to add in some cauliflower to our shepherd's pie. This is just kind of the size that it turned out to be. But yeah, that worked out really well. And then I just cut up about half of a red onion, and I made this into diced size. So I always cut it horizontally, vertically, and then like twice. So vertically one way and then vertically the other way to get nice diced pieces, which is really nice. I threw it in with all the other veggies, and this was all prepped the day before, so that I didn't have to do too much when I was cooking. And then this is just chopped up garlic too. So I had known my husband would be out of town for half of the week, so I just tried to prep as much as I could the day before, which was really, really helpful. Especially when you have a toddler running around, as much as you can do ahead of time is like the best. So highly recommend prepping, especially for things like this where it's veggies, and you can totally chop it up on Sunday night or whenever you have a second. All right, so day of, I am just dropping a few tablespoons of butter in the pan, getting it kind of coated on the pan so I can dump the veggies in. So this is just the bag of veggies that I was chopping before that I did on that Sunday night. And it is so nice just to like dump this whole bag, and I totally dropped the bag in there. And then I am just giving it a little bit of a stir to get all of the butter coated on there. And then we are going to add just a little bit of salt and pepper in there as well. I typically just add that throughout as I need it, especially salt. You kind of just taste as you go. And then I am just letting it saute for about 5 to 10 minutes. It really depends on how cooked you want your veggies. I like mine a little more al dente, so I took them out at about I would say just a little bit less than 10 minutes of cooking. And I'm just taking them out so that we can fit our ground beef in there. I don't really like to fry veggies and beef, but you probably could if you're really just not feeling it. But I am just letting this brown. And then once it's pretty much all the way browned, we are going to add the veggies back in. And then we are going to add in our seasonings. So I was super excited that I was able to use up this small can of tomato sauce. I really wasn't sure what else I would use it for, but this was the perfect dish. It was exactly the amount I needed, which was an 8-ounce can. And I just stirred that in there, and that's just to kind of give like our sauce a base. And then I added in about 2 cups or so of bone broth. This is the bone broth that I made earlier in the week, and I actually have a video on my channel showing how I made it. And then I put about 3 tablespoons or so of Worcestershire sauce. I wish I put a little bit more in there, honestly. I think because of just how much I had, I wish I had flavored it a little bit more. And this is just cornstarch, so this is just going to thicken up our base. Now, you could have added flour with the butter and the veggies, and that also would have helped thicken it up. I just decided to do this afterwards, just because I think it is a little bit easier when you have like other things mixed in there. And then I had like just a little bit of corn left in the freezer, and I am trying to use everything up before we go, so I just put that in there. And I had made mashed potatoes a little bit earlier in the week. We had some steaks, and I made like a ton of mashed potatoes. And so I was like, this is the perfect way to use them up. If you didn't have them prepared, I would just boil potatoes like normal. I usually put like a little bit of butter, cream in mine, and some garlic as well. And a really nice tip is putting garlic in the water with the potatoes when you boil it, and then when you mix it all up, it gets super garlicky. So I am just putting the mixture into a pie pan here. Now make sure that you do not overload it. I did a little bit, and I ended up having like a little bit of juice come out in the oven. So definitely be cautious about overloading it, because it will bubble up and bubble over a little bit. So just be cautious about that. And then I just put the mashed potatoes right on top, and we're really not really worried too much about like cooking this in the oven. We really just want the mashed potatoes to get nice and warm and get a little bit of that toasty color on top. So I put it in the oven at about 400. I left it in there for roughly like 10 minutes or so, and then I hit broil for like 2 minutes just to try and get the mashed potatoes a little crispy brown on top. But you could definitely just do it however you want it. If you want it a little bit crispier, leave it in there a little bit longer and get that like kind of traditional brown color on there. But this is what it looks like, and then I just scooped it right into a bowl, and it was so tasty. And my husband was really excited to have some when he got home from his active duty stuff. So this was definitely a hit, and we will definitely make this one again. So next up is a veggie curry, kind of featuring this acorn squash. So I was just perusing Pinterest and I was like, what can I make with acorn squash? And I saw a recipe that was like a curry and I kind of adapted it just based on what I had. And I cut up this acorn squash. Now, if you guys know of a better way to cut up acorn squash, please let me know in the comments because I just haven't found a great way yet. Mostly with the peeling of the skin part. But I cut this into bite-sized pieces. I wanted them on the smaller end because I just really like squash to get that nice kind of brownish color on them. And then I cut up some more carrots that I had. You guys, I had so many vegetables in my fridge that we were trying to get rid of. And so there's a lot of veggies in this dish, in these dishes this week. But I cut these up on the smaller end as well, just so that they were kind of a consistent size with the squash and so that they cooked quickly in the pan. And then more green beans. You guys, I have so much green beans. And so I just cut that up. I thought that that would go pretty good with the veggie curry as well. Next, I sliced up our red onion, and this was just in kind of long pieces here. So I was going for more of like a stir fry consistency. So this was super easy to chop up really quick. And honestly, I loved the flavor that these like long pieces added to the dish. And so again, a couple of tablespoons of butter going into the pan. And then I just dumped all of the veggies into the pan. And I let that saute for probably about like 10 minutes or so. And I also added in these cauliflower, ended up breaking them into smaller pieces a little bit. And we were quite loaded up in the pan. And so this took, about 10 minutes to really cook down. I don't like my veggies cooked too much. So if you want them softer, definitely cook it longer. And again, we're trying to use up this ginger here. So I did about probably a tablespoon or so. And then I added in this red Thai curry paste. And I really like red Thai curry, but you could also use the green stuff as well. I used the whole jar here because we had a lot of veggies. And I just mixed that up really thoroughly. And then I added in a whole can of coconut milk. And that's what I love about like Thai curries is that the coconut milk just is like the best addition. And it is so easy and such a great ingredient to really make it a unique dish. And so I just let that kind of cook a little bit longer to let those veggies just get a little bit softer. And once they were at the consistency that I like, I turned the heat off and then I just put this right over rice. And we ate this for a few days. It was a lot of food and it was so, so good. All right, guys, so this is what our pantry looks like just under a week of moving. We made a huge dent in it and we still have a week to eat. You can see there's 2 totally empty shelves and we'll be taking most of this food with us. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I super appreciate it and I hope that I see you guys on the other side of this move.